Three main weaknesses that I have been experiencing with the Steam Deck playing AAA titles. Let's talk about it. What up, techies and gamers? It's your boy Jermaine with Tech Toys and Gaming, and today I want to talk about the Steam Deck by Steam, by Valve. And the things I want to talk about with this have been something that have created limitations while utilizing the Steam Deck, mostly playing the AAA, the more demanding game titles. A lot of the older ones, several years back, it can handle those quite nicely, keeping a steady 60 FPS, 60 frames per second. But with more of the newer game titles that just have more running in the background, newer software technology, it gives it quite a struggle. But not to say that it is bad, because Steam Deck, despite what I'm about to say today, is still quite awesome. Let's get into it. Let's dig into it. Dig Dug. What? So number one on my list of things that kind of hold the Steam Deck back and hopefully addressed in the next iteration of the Steam Deck is battery. I have been playing with the Steam Deck a little over 5 months. Various titles, various games. I've been playing AAA titles that are some of the most demanding, as well as some emulation, which are super lightweight, and the Steam Deck has no problem handling it and can put out top performance with the older game titles that are not so demanding graphically, processor wise. Now, just cutting straight to the chase, when you are playing AAA titles, medium to high graphic settings, medium to high frame rate, 45 to 60 FPS, expect to get about an hour or so, hour and 20 minutes tops of gameplay just running off of battery at 100%. Depending on how high you set the graphics, how high you set the frame rate, you may get even less than that, especially if you're playing like a modern AAA title. We have to understand that there has to be some kind of balance and compromise when you're packing such a punch into such a small, not that small, bigger than most handheld consoles, but such a small form factor, because this is basically a handheld gaming PC. And coming with a gaming setup like that in the palm of your hand, if anyone out there who owns a PS4, PS5, an Xbox Series X, a PC gaming rig, you know that you need fans, you need ventilation, because these games will tax your GPU as well as your CPU. So it's going to draw quite a lot of power when you're playing these higher end AAA titles, and is going to definitely drain your battery significantly faster than some of the non-AAA titles, emulation, right? Any of those types of games you're playing. Out of emulation, expect to get probably 3 hours of gameplay easily. So yeah, that just goes to show you how much these AAA titles are sapping your computers, and definitely this handheld Steam Deck. Now, the second thing that holds the Steam Deck back, or could probably use a nice little upgrade in the second iteration of it, is the display. Now, when I talk about display, am I referring to the display type, the resolution, the frame rate that it can put out? I would say that it's not just one of those things itself, but probably a combination of all three that may be causing it to be held back. However, if it were an OLED display and everything else was the same, would any of those other things really matter? If it was still only 60 FPS, if it was still 1280 by 720p, maybe not. If it was 1920 by 1080p and still running 60 FPS and not OLED, would it matter out there in the tech and gamer world? Maybe not. It probably wouldn't for me, because you're getting that higher resolution, but you need the hardware that can actually support it. Then comes in the battery life, then comes in the thermals, so we'll get into that in a sec. And if the screen supported over 90 FPS, maybe 120 FPS, but was still the same LED type of screen, and it was still 1280 by 800, would that matter if you had such a high frame rate? Maybe not. I probably wouldn't matter for me, and I would be just fine with the rest of the way the display is set. So when it comes to an upgrade in the next iteration, I wouldn't expect that we'll get all three of those things upgraded at once. Higher refresh rate, a OLED panel, for example, and higher resolution, that means essentially you'd have to upgrade a lot of the other components in the actual deck itself, including better thermal regulation, right? Because all of these things are tied in together. You can't just expect to upgrade something like that and not affect the other things in the device, the other hardware overall. So yeah, that's kind of in a dream world if you think that's the way it works. So in the next iteration of this Steam Deck, techie and gamers, tell me what you would prefer in the comments. Higher resolution, keeping the same 60 FPS, keeping the same panel type, right? Non-OLED. Would you prefer 120 Hertz? Maybe even 90 Hertz refresh rate, right? But still keeping all the other components? Or would you prefer it to be an OLED and keeping all the other settings the same as well? Let me know. I mean, obviously we would like all three, but expect the price to go up as well. And number 3, last but definitely not least, is the thermals or the fan noise, right? They kind of go hand in hand because of the heat this thing can generate, especially playing those bigger games, those more graphically demanding games. You will get significant fan noise, significant heat. And yes, it is very audible. So if you are playing the game with the volume relatively low and just using the speakers on the Steam Deck itself, those fans may even override the sound coming out of the speakers. Yeah, it gets significantly loud. And just to give you a little demonstration of what that fan noise sounds like, I have been playing Jedi Fallen Order for a little bit, right? Just started the game and been, I don't know, maybe an hour or so into it. And I have the graphics set to about medium high settings, trying to keep it at 60 FPS, kind of going back and forth, playing with the frame rate, trying to find that sweet spot. But even running it at 45 frames per second at medium settings, those fans are quite loud. And just to get a little sound of what those fans sound like, listen to this. Shh. And that is about, I don't know, 30 minutes or so into the game. But if you're like me, a lot of the times I'm playing with my Bluetooth headphones, you won't notice it because you can't hear anything outside of it. But that is just to give you a little taste of what kind of heat this little guy generates. Yes, you will get up to 80 plus degrees Celsius, 80 plus degrees. What? Valve, you've done a good job with regulating those thermals, because even while I'm plugged in to a power source and playing for 2 hours and some change on some of these more demanding games, the frame rates, I would say for a game title like Asterigos in Kenya, they've stayed quite steady, to be honest, and I have not seen too much of the frame drops. You know, 60 FPS, you get it down to about 50. Pretty good when you're running it at pretty good graphical settings. So yeah, this thing is a little bit of a sneaky beast. What is a sneaky beast? All right, techies and gamers, so my final take on the 3 upgrades that this device could definitely use. I think that it can be done, not for less money, it's going to cost more, but it can be done. Now, just understand, if we are demanding that Valve does upgrade just these 3 little things, the battery, the graphics, well, the display itself, as well as the thermals, the fan, the noise, it's going to require that other parts within the device is to be upgraded as well. You need, for better thermals, better noise reduction, you need new hardware. You have to try to find a way to make it so that the audio or the fans are more silent, which means a whole reconstruction internally to get better FPS, right? With better display technology, you're gonna need better GPU, APU to run this device and to be able to sustain higher frame rates at higher resolutions. Even if you upgraded to an OLED display panel, you still need to upgrade those core internal components. Let me know in the comments what you think about these particular upgrades that I'm suggesting. Do you think it's possible? Which would you prefer on the display side? Better resolution, higher frame rates, or just a better LCD or LED display technology, OLED, right? You let me know. And with that, I'll leave you to your own demise. What?